claims that the United States had waged biological warfare true? Or had captured American flyers been brainwashed into confessing they had dropped infected bombs? And finally, was the war worth fighting? The Korean War was a memorable saga of human tragedy and courage, replete with heroes on both sides, an unforgettable epic of world consequence. I hope my efforts here make amends for my lack of vision in 1950 to 53. Prologue. Tools of History. 1. Korea's long and checkered history has been determined by its location at the crossroads of East Asia. Local wars for power were the rule until finally, in the 7th century BC, the kingdom of Silla gained control with the help of the neighboring Chinese, who managed to impose their Confucian system of social relationships on the Korean people. They also bequeathed a rich legacy of ethics, arts, and literature that endured for thousands of years despite numerous invasions by barbarians and visitations by Westerners. When they arrived in the middle of the 19th century to trade, these Westerners failed to understand the Confucian father-son relationship between China and Korea, and assumed Korea was a vassal state. The Japanese, however, understood and were determined to make this strategic peninsula part of the growing Japanese Empire. In 1910, they annexed Korea and with ruthless force turned it into a semi-industrialized Japanese colony. A school system was established which created an efficient workforce and turned many of the brightest young Koreans into officers of the Japanese army. Several attempts at rebellion were crushed, and soon after Pearl Harbor Day, the Japanese converted Korea into an important military base. The peninsula of Korea, jutting from Northeast Asia towards Japan, was mountainous, with only about 20% of the land arable. It was perhaps their topography and hardy life that made Koreans different from the Chinese and Japanese. They took pride in their physical endurance, reacted violently to challenge, and could be both sweet-natured and aggressive. Yet even under the most adverse circumstances, they retained a sense of humor. They were often called the Irish of the Orient. After 33 years of being exploited by the Japanese, Korean patriots finally got encouragement from the outside world. In 1943, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Chiang Kai-shek stated in the Cairo Declaration that they were determined Korea shall become free and independent. But Roosevelt told Stalin at Yalta that it would take 20 to 30 years before Korea would be ready for complete independence. After the surrender of the Japanese, President Truman suggested that the Soviets receive the surrender of those Japanese forces north of the 38th parallel, and that the Americans receive the surrender of those to the south. This seemingly innocuous agreement not only ended the Koreans' long-cherished dream of independence, but it also turned a homogeneous people into implacable enemies. The rigid parallel stretched across the country arbitrarily, the antithesis of a natural boundary. The American zone contained only about 42% of the land, but two-thirds of the total population of 30 million. It was primarily a farming area and furnished food to the north. The Soviet zone was rich in mineral deposits and provided most of the manufactured goods needed by the south. It also possessed the country's only petroleum processing and cement plants, and its hydroelectric works, built by the Japanese, were among the best in the world. Consequently, the South depended largely on the North for its electric power. The ending of World War II brought an inevitable shift in the balance of international power, with the Soviets and Americans no longer allies but bitter foes in a suicidal ideological conflict. Unfortunately for the Koreans, their country was one of the prizes. The selection of the 38th parallel as